Hey everyone, here again, Steve Trimble, Double on the line. Today I have a different video for you guys. I got a lot of requests to do something like this, and what is the role of Spectacle Spite? How does it do? And whatever its good matchups in a team setting. So here's my first video about, like, say I'm gonna show you a matrix. I'm gonna give a couple little pointed answers of why Spectacle Spite is potentially good in teams and what it's gonna be doing. And then I will show you the two lists I'll talk about. I'll bring up the two lists after this little slide. So first off, why should you bring Spectacle Spite to teams? First point, it's one of, if not the most flexible army in the whole game. That means it can do pretty much every role. You can make a very heavy defensive based damage list and try and go for heavy terrain defending, especially if you're maybe on a teams format like a Challenger Cup, which has WTC terrain integrated and using some stuff like GW7 and 8, where you can be good on boards, you'll be having good matchups handed to you. But also it can be very good as like a counter attacker type army. There's a lot of armies that have very bad matchups with Spectacle Spite, so you can use it to pinpoint and get great matchups for your army. And since Spectacle Spite has pretty much no matchups it auto loses to, it's very good into a scrum, something like that's the 7 and the 8 pairings who just get paired randomly essentially and not into specific matchups. It doesn't just lose to pretty much any terrain. It can play in pretty much most terrain formats, because since your whole army is located in like a very small amount of small vehicles, you're not very open. So it can do every role pretty much at the exact same time with one specific list, while your opponent doesn't really know what to do. So you're very hard to be pinned down. So it's very flexible in that way. It can do everything. For instance, a not flexible army is something like Blood Angels. Blood Angels needs to be defending and getting board presence and playing good matchups. It's like good at that, but it's very rigid. This is the exact opposite. It's very open. It's very nice. You can do everything. Step number 2, this one is not as important, but it's a very interesting part, is it has niche damage profiles. Pretty much no one in the game, like Orks kind of do, that has this amount of very efficient damage 1. So it's very good into things in the current meta. It's very good into things like Orks. It's very good into things like World Eaters. It's very good into like Vectrix Guard, because pretty much this is the only army in the game that can get mass AP4 in melee. Obviously some armies can get a little bit of it. Some armies can get some characters, but this one is like you can have almost a full unit of Little Squad be AP4 melee, stuff like that. You have At Will Succubus, Morgan's Curse be AP4 melee. It's a very niche thing that is very something you can capitalize on. Like this is one of the better armies in Vectrix, for instance, for that reason. High AP, anti-infantry, stuff like that. On point 3, I kind of brought this up at point 1. It's a supreme points now army. This is one of, if not one of the best go second armies in the game, due to having so much high OC. You're the fastest army in the game. You are just the fastest army in the game. Not like Eldar has some things that are quite fast, but as an army itself, Drukhari is the fastest, especially Spectacle Spite. So you have the ability to like send Reavers 26 inches and put 6 to 12 OC on a point. You have Witches who are 10 OC for 5 models for 45 points for 5-man. That beats pretty much most units in the game that aren't like battle line. Like a Knight is 10 OC, for instance, and 5 Witches ties them. So you have the ability to just absolutely like destroy their heavy points scoring armies, something they need a 20 on. You can send this army into it and just put them on a 10-10 or even beat them quite easily by just completely stopping their points. On the opposite end of points denial, due to having so much omega fast units that don't cost anything, the ability to just score points if you're not trying to like heavily win is so easy. The ability to do secondaries and primary is so easy. And on that point too, challenge met is the strongest stratagem in the whole game, and that flips games on its head. And on a teams format, you can use that aggressively, because like in singles, there's a lot of instances where you have an okay challenge met, but it won't lead anywhere. Like you can like challenge met, say like a Reaver squad to do something, and it might stop a secondary, but you're losing a squad for free. That's not going to be that great in singles, but in teams, that could be the point of winning a round or not. And then finally, you can be one of the strongest pairing princess armies in the game, which is where I have 2 lists, and I'll show you that type of list. What if you're like a very high damage, like 30 Hellions and like Malice and such, and you go for like that second defend role? while getting preferably like something like GW8 or 7, you can score 20 O's with like little to no effort because you have very little bad matchups, and you're gonna give yourself mostly a good matchup at that point. So it has the ability to do everything. It's the fastest army in the game, which is innately just a strong thing to me. But at the same time, this is one of, if not one of the hardest armies in the whole game to play. So you have to be very proficient, very skilled. You cannot just pick up Spectral Spite and do good in teams. You will screw up your team. Don't do that. But if you are practiced and you're very good at this army, this will be one of the best 8s you can choose for your team. And all right, let's go to the list now. Here we go. So first list. Anyone who's watched my channels will see this list is very familiar or slightly different with the points changes. This is what I'm going to call like the generic list. This is like the one that's not going for the parity princesses nearly as much and is trying to do everything. So this is a 60 witch list. So we have a raider, we have 5 venoms, we have 60 witches, 3 succubuses to go with some of the witches, 2 just normal gladiatorial weapon witches inside venoms, 5 squads outside the venoms, 25 hellions, 12 reavers, and a Kronos. So you have 11 squad of witches, 11 squads of OC2 witches. You have a bunch of vehicles that move super fast, but you still have insanely high damage at the same time. So this is what I was talking about. This is like the flexible type list that can do everything. It can play a heavy defender and score high. It can attack into pretty much every army in the game to force your opponent to play matchups they don't want. Like for instance, world leaders cannot play against this army, period. You can attack if you want world leaders into something else. Obviously, you want to play against world leaders, but your opponent doesn't want you to play them. So if you can force world leaders into another good matchup, stuff like that. It's like a silver bullet. But it can also just play the scrum. It's one of the best army. I would say it's very up there, like top like 3 or 4 best armies to just scrum, because there isn't a single army in the game. There's one that is a bad match, like actively a terrible matchup, which is Rubricate Phalanx. We'll get to the end. But you can play into literally anything, and even a teams format, Rubricate Phalanx, I'm pretty sure I don't like lose. It's just like a hard win, but it doesn't matter in teams. So this is the generic list, and then this is this is just an idea. You don't have to be doing this exactly, but this is the idea of a more damaging list. So we have 50 witches, 4 venoms a raider, Lilith with her friends, 10 friends. 2 succubuses. This one still gets to keep fight first because you have the random points for it. +1 AP and damage. Morgana's Curse. And alright, then we got just 4 witches on the outside. 30 Hellings this time. Only 9 reavers instead of 12. And then, but we get to buy Incubi from Malice. So we have this unit who hits pretty hard in specific things like Veterans Guard. This unit actually hits very hard into. Obviously, we have 30 Hellions to do a lot of damage. This is just a more damaging base brawler based list. You're gonna, this is a role for someone that needs to be pairing princessed, but if that is specifically your role and you don't care about being substantially less flexible, this is amazing for that. Those are 2 lists. If you have any questions about these 2 lists, please post them in the comments and such, and I will, I can lead you different ways. If you really want Scourges, I would suggest not playing them, but hypothetically, you can add Scourges into like a damaging list. I would only play them into like this type of list, for instance. Like say like you bring Haywire Scourges and you try to hunt like transport based armies, stuff like that. So if you have any questions like that, just let me know. Hello everyone, it's future me. I'm re-recording this Matrix section because I didn't really like the original one. So here now this is a Matrix. First I'll explain how it works and what the colors mean. So first you have a color scale, and what I use the color scale for is a teal is a super heavy win like a 1920. Blue is a very heavy win, like a very steady, you're going to score incredibly high, not exactly 20-0 or not one you can guarantee, but something like more than 15 points. And I guess I can explain team points after I get through scale. Green is a good win, between 12 to 15. Purple is a tie, between 8 and 12 points. Orange is a small loss, 7 between 6 and 7. And 5, and red is it's a bad matchup. You are at most going to score 5. This gray is for ambiguous. I used it on this matrix for it's very important for terrain choice. I only use it for one army, so when we get to the army you can talk about it. And black is for I don't know. I haven't played and I can't give a good actual reasoning. How teams points works is you both start with 10 points, and for each 5 points more you have than your opponent, like say more than 5, say I have like a My opponent scored 75 and I scored 81, you get 1 more point. So for each, essentially more than 6 points you have in your opponent, you switch to the points differential. So hypothetically, if it was that score, I would have gotten an 11 and he would have gotten 9. So it's just that's the basics of team scoring. You both score a pot of 20 points and you try to trade the ability to score those points off each other. Like you want your opponent to score as close to 0 as possible and you as much as 20. You want the whole pot. And that goes into your team's total score of upwards up to 160 points. As team scoring. And then so I made a giant matrix of pretty much as what I could think of all the generic type meta armies. There's obviously not going to be every detachment here, and there'll be some extra attachments that aren't that important. And I scored them all depending on the 2 lists I talked about, either a heavy defending damaging base list, which is here at the bottom, or my generic 60 witch list. I can play everything. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to go in depth into every single army. I'm going to try and keep it as condensed as possible. And a lot of armies are going to have, this is pretty much the same as something else, because like say every type of marine body type army, so like CSM, Marines, Blood Angels and such, they're not all that different. They play very similar to each other. You play against them very similar. So I don't want to go in too depth because I don't want this video to be incredibly long. I can make in-depth videos on specific armies, but I really don't want to go in depth here because I'm trying to make this video less than probably an hour, because that's what people want. They want some, still like an hour-long videos, long, but not as long as my usual 3-hour VODs. All right, we're gonna get into Sisters. This is a generic type list where you're just generically favored into. Sisters are not great at primary. They're like okay at it. They mostly rely on their tanks and maybe just like disembarking ladies onto objectives. But they don't have a high OC characteristics. They don't bring Battle Sisters. Everything in their army is either a tank, which is OC 2 to 4, or a normal sister model, which is OC 1. They're not expensive. They're not necessarily super cheap anymore. And you are super cheap. You're much faster than them, and your profiles kill them very easily. They're T3. They just rely on 3-up saves with a low amount of invul saves. So a lot of things you like killing. And they don't really have too much great profiles into you, except like things like hand flamers, which they don't run a lot of right now, because they're running a lot of things like meltas and like other random more specialized weapons, things that aren't amazing into your type of profile. And same thing goes for Champions of Faith, which is the 30 Sacristan list. And also I put some generic like ideas of what each list was. This is, a generic list, lots of characters distinct. This is a 30 Sacristan list. It always says Valgons, stuff like that. So, and if I don't say any difference, that means the 2 lists I would say are pretty fairly identical in score. I wouldn't expect much differences. If there's a difference, like when we get to Eldar, I'll talk about it. So Sisters, Champions of Faith, it's pretty much the same thing, except this army is relying on 30 Sacristants to carry everything. They're saying, my 30 Sacristants needs to hold all the primary, needs to bully the opponent, and if it can do that, I'm going to win. And if it can't, I'm going to lose. That's essentially what the bottom of my pyramid is. And this army can very easily kill a 10-man Sacristan with very little effort, with pretty much any witch squad, multiple witch squads, Hellions, etc. Even Hellions and shooting will kill them. So you're one of the few armies that doesn't get stat checked by that with very easily at all. And they have to also be very careful because you have free precision on all your characters and they need their hospitalers. It's similar to race with the hangback. Custodes, it's super favored in general. Custodes, they're the most measurable army in the game because they don't have any mobility. They just move 6 and once per game. Some amount of the units can advance a charge if they have a blade champion. That is it. So you just can know how far they're going to move at all times. They don't really have any shooting, and the shooting they do bring are the bolters, which are decent versus you, or the land fortress, not the land fortress, the Custodes grav tanks, which are really bad into you because it's just the las cannon profile, so it's like really inefficient. It's a really big, you can move block it very easily. Our profiles kill Custodes at a blinding speed, like Hellions into Custodian guards just will mulch them off the face of the earth. Obviously things like Lilith and Morgana's Succubus. You have a lot of ways to cheese out Wardens, for instance, because Wardens have to use their Feel No Pain at the beginning of a phase. So you can say, movement phase, are you going to use your Feel No Pain? They're not going to use it, and then you can throw Reavers at them and do like 8 mortal wounds in the move phase and kill almost 3 Wardens before they even get a Feel No Pain, because the pretty much the only attachment people ever plays Lions of the Emperor, which doesn't have a mortal wound Feel No Pain strat. It's the only one that doesn't have it. They also don't like witches, the disembark ability, not disembark, the fallback ability. They don't like taking desperate escapes for free if they're trying to escape combat, because most attachments have fallback, shoot, and charge, but they can't really efficiently do that against witches. Their OC is decent, but say like especially for Custodian Guard, which are just OC 2, 5 witches is the same OC as a full 200 something point Custodian Guard squad, which is not a good trade for them OC wise. So you just you do everything into them, and they're really sad about it. Admech, this was a green before they got 200 points more expensive, and now this is even higher green. I can't say with good face that it's a blue, but it's relatively close to that depending on how your skill level is and how skillful you are in Admech. You have amazing profiles into them. You can kill Sicarians with the Field of Pain very easily. You can kill them. They just kill them through the Field of Pain with like some of your more important units. I think things like Hellion shooting is very efficient to them. And this is one of the I'll bring it up when it's very pertinent, I guess the word is. But this army hates challenge met. They have very little ways to play around it. They just eat it and they do not like it. So this is another very quite easy matchup. Harlequins, very favorite. Harlequins, if you don't know, I just posted a video today. You can watch it. Or it's very similar to Spectacles play. It plays pretty much the exact same play style, but it does it for double the price. So you're playing essentially the same list, except you cost half as much. You're also faster, and you hit harder in melee. So which is all the things you want. The only thing you don't have is you have worse shooting, obviously, because Harlequin troops get 3 fusion per 5, and they're good fusion, and some random bigger bolter. And then their Star Weavers have decent shooting. But yeah, so essentially you're playing a very similar idea. Just yours is better. Generic Eldar. Here's the first with the change. Generic Eldar, you want more stuff. You want to go wider against Generic Eldar because they're going to try and alpha strike you. It's the only way like a Generic Eldar list is really going to function. If you say like someone's trying to still play Aspect Host or War Host, they're going to try and alpha strike you with things like Warp Spiders and Swooping Hawks, maybe Dark Reaper launchers and such. So you want to go wider. The 10-man Hellions aren't useful here that much, except for just being 10-man Hellions, because you don't need their damage. 5 Hellions will kill anything in the army with no effort. Incubi are fairly useless in this army because they just move 7, and you don't need their damage. The Vect is not that useful here because they don't have a lot of strats you care about. So this is the first one where I would say the first list is much better. And Eldar is also another army, especially playing like War Host and Aspect Host, that's terrible at primary. They can't hold primary at all. The only thing they can do is suicide to stop primary, so the more witches you have, the better. Grizzled Company. These are very similar, but Grizzled Company is going to be running Bulgrin, and Combined Arms will not. This should be changed. This should be closer to a green. I don't want to, tell people off the back this is a green, but Grizzled Company is easier than Combined Arms, unless they're like playing a very skewed full anti-Alice list, which in a lot of ways is actually better in Combined Arms, because I would rather deal with reroll ones to hit than sustained hits. Though to be fair, one of the platforms that has anti-Alice, the new platform that comes with like 2 artillery batteries, has sustained if you order them, so it's pretty good. But let's say most Grizzled Company's lists are not running anti-Alice. I'm looking at the metas right now. The ones that are winning events are just running essentially Combined Arms with maybe some Bulgrin, playing essentially the same list because they're very similar attachments. But why Grizzled Company is innately easier is because they have a lot of, none of the strats really do anything. They have a lot of damaging strats. You have things like gain like lethal, gain ignore cover, like +1 strength with like bolt guns, things like, let me check exactly. Yeah, so I'm looking at the strats. So you have gain lethal hits on things and objectives. That doesn't matter. Any like damage strat in the end, I'm going to say doesn't matter for the rest of you, because it doesn't, because that you die with no effort. So someone making their guns do slightly more damage, it's kind of useless. So things like gaining lethal hits, gaining +1 strength with your las guns, AOC in the shooting phase. What else do you have? Ignores cover, I said. You have sticky, which is like, it's like okay, but it's really only good on the tanks because their normal infantry already have sticky. So, and the tanks are low OC. They're only OC 3. Thorns are OC5, and if you use if you have to use also a bad order, you have to use the +1 OC order to even use this strat. Makes them OC4, which is still only the same OC of a witch, which means they can't even use a strat because they would not have owned the objective. The sticky of it. and then they have +1 order as a strat. So none of these strats innately do a lot. Versus combined arms, which has slightly more important strats. Not like a lot. Neither of these attachments have that much strats you care about. Combined arms has a thing like the resurrect strat. What else does it have? You have like flexible orders and stuff like that. And I would say a usually in general more slightly scary attachment ability. Obviously the combined armor one is more restricted, you know, tanks versus tanks, infantry versus infantry. The reroll ones to hit if you're ordered, which you can lose orders eventually. That's a priority when fighting this army, is kill their order people. Another thing is the combined arms can use a strat to let infantry order tanks and tanks order infantry. Imperial company can't do that. So say if they run out of their Dorn commanders, the only thing they potentially could order with is Lord Solar. Lord Solar is an infantry unit. When he's leading, you can assassinate him. So this is essentially, Crystal Company is a more restricted version of combined arms versus Spectral Spite specifically. This is not saying Crystal Company is bad anyway. I'm just saying in this type of matchup, I would say Crystal Company is easier. And the actual biggest reason is they are going to be bringing, what are these guys called? Bolgrin. Bolgrin are just a infantry unit with okay saves that rely on -1 damage to be durable. And everything in our army is damage 1, except for Hellions. So like they're susceptible to Hellion shooting. They're very susceptible to things like Loath. So they're wasting points on Bolgrin, quote unquote, in our matchup. That makes it easier. So the only didn't read is these are both mid matchups on board choice. They're infinitely easier for relatively obvious reasons. Obviously, if Grizzle Company has anti-LS, it's harder. And yeah, so in Grizzle Company is generally slightly easier. I know that kind of was rambling, but I just wanted to express because a lot of people have like, oh my god, Grizzle Company is a boogeyman. Maybe for other armies, not for us in general. Blood Angels. This is the new attachment, Rage Onslaught, I think it's called. Green, because it's just a detachment that relies on having infantry models that hit high up because they have a lot of stats that want to punch up. You want to use and they're very expensive, so you want to use your expensive models and kill expensive tanks, not cheap ass, which is every single melee army with only melee units is very susceptible to challenge met because they want to dive deep to try and kill something potentially, and they don't want to get intercepted by 5 witches. And a lot of their one of their cute interactions, like -1 damage to Lamarties, is very not useful here. That unit is susceptible to Hellion shooting, and Lilith damage, stuff like that. So this is relatively favored. It's just an elite infantry model that wants to punch up, and you are not an elite infantry army. You are very cheap, and you punch up even harder. Angelic Inheritors. This is similar to the first one, except they don't have the things that make this attachment kind of slightly annoying, which is the ability to fight on death and have fight first. I know I did put a purple here for the only reason that this type of detachment is more susceptible to uppy downy shooting due to 10-man Hellions being harder to deploy. They're more awkward, being ginormous, and you need to send them out turn 1 and maybe turn 2. They're harder to move versus an army that's going to be bringing things like Inceptors and maybe even Desolation Marines and such. This is just a slightly harder version, but their melee is substantially worse. They don't have things like fight first. A lot easier to deal with melee wise. So this is otherwise still just a favored matchup in general, though, due to essentially what I said here, but they're easier to kill. Demons. Here's one of the first ones where the damage list is important. This is not really, this is mostly like index demons because I can't in good faith talk about Scintillating Legion. I don't have experience with new Scintillating Legion yet. I will get some soon, but I'm just to take this in mind. If Scintillating Legion is substantially like different, I will make a post saying Scintillating sucks, don't play against it. But this is one where you want more Hellions and you want Malice and some Incubi. Because you can't, it's harder to just stop their primary. It's not like that hard, but they have things like Rodigus, which are really annoying with the -1 OC aura. And they have since they're melee tanks, if you don't You kill them in melee, you die in the backburn. It's not like if you kill a Dorn and don't one-shot it, Dorn's not going to kill you in melee on your own turn. If you don't one-shot Scarbrand, he's going to chop your Hellions in half. So it's slightly more hard to deal with. They have some annoying overwatches with things like Rodigus, Great and Clean Ones, and the Bloodthirsters. Potentially Lord of Changes because they have Sus D3, but they're just Raw Dog and 6s at that point. So this is I would say not a hard matchup in general because it's just like 4 to 5 models. You kill between 2 and 3 of them and they can't do anything. Even though if you don't table them, it's like 2 bigs can't win a game. They're not going to win a game high, even if you're getting wrecked. So higher damage, good here. War Dogs. This is only an orange for caution of max havocs. I don't actually think this is a bad matchup in general. But this is just a matchup where you want the higher damage. The strats don't matter too much. You don't care about mouse too much, but having more Hellions is very nice. I'll get to this when I'll talk to the Spirit at Arms because that's more of a real list. People actually play Spirit at Arms. No one plays War Dog spam. 99% of the time you're going to see bigs, so there's not really much to talk about here. And it's kind of waste time to talk about this. Bigs. Triple spoiler. This is easy. I'll explain why. Knights rely on a lot of things. They're essentially 3 models, 3 bigs with a little bit of support. They usually bring between like 2 and 3 War Dogs and some demons. You don't have a lot of models. So the ability for them to screen is nil. They cannot screen like at all. They just eat Hellions and hopefully they're towering in a spot where they can shoot Hellions. So they can't screen very well. They rely on OC6 and OC10 models to do all their primary. And they cannot overwatch. So you can have things like Witches and Reavers completely negate all their primary with impunity as long as you're not playing Purge the Foe. You punch up incredibly hard with things like Succubus's due to them being characters, especially Morgana's Curse and Hellions. Especially, Hellions, a lot of times when on 4s, they get 4-up saves against damage 2, and you're like, here's 50 attacks or something. So killing bigs is not that hard. If you kill like 2 bigs early on and the rest of their army, it's just one guy trying to kill all the dudes while you're scoring all the points and he can't score anything. This is a quite favored list. This is a one where I would say the generic list is better because you just want those extra witch squads to go do things. They don't have like any strats you care about. They have one strat that matters, which is the lets them do their detachment ability out of phase so they can get their infil save in melee out of phase. That's it. It's the only strat that matters. Incubi are not good here because these guys are T11 and you're not in it, and they're not infantry, so no dev boom. So Incubi are really bad in this instance. And you want those more Reavers to do things like move blocking, random melta damage, even charging in with Lance is very nice. So generic list better here. Both CSMs, Bile and Raiders, they are very similar. They play pretty much the exact same way. The only difference is Bile sometimes runs a Discord or 2 and sometimes runs Predators, but they're less common. And Bile exclusive, Raiders does if I said Bile, and Bile just runs all infantry. But overall, it's just a bunch of low durability infantry models that punch relatively up, but they don't punch, they innately punch down by just being a lot of chain swords, but they don't do it like cost efficiently. Like I would say, like a unit that punches down cost efficiently is Witches because they cost 9 points a model and they'll kill T3. Like normal Witches will kill T3 so easily, and like Gladiator weapon Witches will kill them at Mach 5 pace for 4 to 5 points for 5 compared to the cheapest 5-point model, 5-man model armies like 90 points. So they don't punch down excessively well. So it's just a little bit of shooting. Noise Marines are low range shooting. Predators sometimes, though those are less common now, much less common now. It's just what I said earlier about, Blood Angels and other armies. It's just killing Marine bodies, which is where professional Marine body killers. They do primary okay due to bringing more battle line than average because they usually bring between 2 to 5 Legionnaire squads, so they usually have more battle line than other armies. And Bile can do primary shenanigan things. They have the Resurrect strat that lets them resurrect D3 models if they are a battle line, so it's kind of cute. But really the only scary unit in either of these armies are the Warp Talons. Because no matter what, they're going to kill what they touch in your army and then they get to go up. So you have to perpetually screen a lot. It's kind of the only annoying thing, but it's not really going to do a lot because the War Talons might be assassinating 5 witches a turn, but it's not progressing the game for them too much. They're just killing 5 witches and running away. It's like a very ghetto anti-loss. You can think about it that way. That costs them a CP every turn. Otherwise, it's just kill most of their infantry early on, and then they can't score very well, and that will lead to the victory. Emperor's Children. This is the only, I would say, the only actively somewhat hard marine type body army that you can run, except for one detachment when we get to it, T-Sons. This is with the idea of 3 princes. Like, I guess I'll make a second category. 1 second. All right, there you go. So I made a second category for the new court of the Phoenician detachment. So I'll get into, I'll talk them together because they're very similar. Y court, I'll just take Y court is easier for 2 factors. One, the detachability does not matter, and it's kind of annoying to use. Detachability is if you have 1 unit solo in combat and he charged, you get +1 attack and AP. That's whatever. It's like the AP is useless versus us. The +1 attack is cute, but you're gonna, except like Hellions against like 5 infractors, you're gonna kill us when we're in combat. It's like whatever. But they don't have AOC, which is imperative. Hellions can kill 2-up saves. They can kill things with AOC. They can kill things with -1 damage. If you have all 3 combined, they're not going to do a lot of damage. But when you take out the -1 damage part, the no AOC part, they can kill you. 10 Hellions with a damage buff, preferably like weapon skill or attack, can one-shot a -1 damage EC Demon Prince. And then they also don't have other strats that matter, like the Fight Me strat. They have a Taunt strat, and they have a 4-up against Mortal strat, which are all very good against you. Because normally you can do Reavers, free Mortals. It doesn't work on EC Demon Princes, but very good. They're expensive infantry models. Obviously, you can get it on the Fight Me strat. Versus Court doesn't have a lot of strats that matter. It's like more damaging strats, like rerolls against characters, going through walls, which is kind of cute, but you can block that off because the only things going through walls are Mauler Fiends, Demon Princes, and Fulgrim. These are all big bases. So you can just have your models like blocking off the walls where they can't land anywhere. So going through walls doesn't end up doing anything, especially for Fulgrim and a Mauler Fiend. So, but generally this is still hard because 3 Demon Princes, you can't just whiff and just lose. For the reason I said, they're harder to kill in Coterie, and the Coterie detachability is a lot better. Because 1, we have a shit ton of models, either detachment, shit ton of models that you need to be using because you're giving the free Coterie buffs. The Coterie buff even affects their shooting, which is really good, you know. Even with the Rhino with real wants to hit wound, very efficient to us. Don't really want to be dealing with that. And all right. And finally, this is also, if you have a board choice here, a board presence. I don't know what happened to this. This is red. Board choice, presence, whatever. This is much more favored. This is for every army in the game ever. This is generic, but if you're defending and you can pick something like table 7, table 8, even table 1, pretty much you can increase all the scores here by like 1. So if you can like get a heavy board like table 7 or table 8, and then the EC can't efficiently use Noise Marines, can't efficiently use Demon Princes, it's just infinitely easier no matter what. But this is the generic scale of, you know, I'm not telling you you're defending, except this does say defenderless, but I'm not using this idea it's defending. Oh, and finally about the EC is this is one of the, I will actively say, few armies, Coterie specific, where a Vect is very, very good. There's like a couple armies where it matters. Blood Angels, Rage Curse, kind of. They have a restricted fire on death, and obviously they're going to interrupt, and they have AOC. Kind of annoying. They don't have a lot of 2-up saves. They only have 1 unit that really has it. It's just Sanguinary Guard. But they don't get a fight on death, so you don't care too much. You know, you just send Lilith into the Sanguinary Guard, and she'll stab him to death. But here they have things like the Fight Me strat, they have the Mortal Wound strat, they have AOC, they have Interrupt. Don't want to be dealing with that, especially Demon Princess. So Malice helps a lot. Malice also, the Incubi are quite good in here because it's just T5 Demon Princes, which Incubi can kill. They don't have the dev wounds, but they can a little bit. They're like similar to Hellions in that situation, but very good in the rest of the army. So this list's better. Wrath of the Rock, similar to Marines, but this one even more so. You have a lot of tricks around Wrath of the Rock. Wrath of the Rock is really just a bully list that has terrible primary. It's just, it relies on doing things like Vanguard vets, and maybe less so. Maybe people aren't running them now, but I'm, you know, this is before the day. It's like kind of my idea because I haven't seen Wrath of the Rock list since then. Vanguard vets, mostly obviously the known Deathwing Knights and stuff, the whole primary, which are all OC1, and Deathwing Knights are very expensive at 50 points a model for OC1. And you have ways to play around Lionel Johnson, for instance. Like 10 Hellions can suicide into him, you know, die to his fight first, but then fight on death, and you cannot use AOC on a fight on death. So the Hellions, especially if you're +1 strength turn, can just like one shot a Lionel Johnson, or most of his wounds, you know, supported with maybe some mortals in the with a grenade. Obviously, he probably has his 4 Feel No Pain active, but you can. It's just free damage. It's not free. It's constant UCP, but it's extra damage that if you get 2 through, that's 1 whole less attack, only 4 Hellion attacks to go through. And not having AOC means he will most likely just die to the Hellions fight death, which is really good because the Hellion squad is half the price of Lionel Johnson. A lot of armies can't deal with his fight first because they don't have, you know, like most armies melee, even with fire death, cannot one-shot Lionel Johnson because they're relying on a bunch of high AP attacks, very efficient attacks, not a million attacks that are also efficient. So you have ways of dealing with that. You have very good ways of dealing with Deathwing Knights. Deathwing Knights are just normal Terminators that rely on -1 damage to carry him to victory, and you're the damage 1 army, so not losing benefit there. And you have the cheesy stuff with like Reaver Mortals, forcing them to use their Watchers in the Dark super early in the movement phase, something they don't want to do, and then maybe you can do some free Mortals, not free, you know, I keep saying free, but grenades in the shooting phase. Yeah, but the generic part is, though, overall, this is an army you can jail incredibly easy. They're just running 5-inch moving Terminators, 4-inch moving Centurions, and they have very low OC, so you can jail them with impunity. You can steal their primary with very little effort. For instance, they lose 1 Deathwing Knight. Say you punch incredibly, you fail, and you kill 1 to 2 Deathwing Knights. 2 Witches still hold that objective. That's terrible for them. Your 18 points of Witches can just still steal that primary, and they just get shit out of luck. They have like a really bad version of Challengement, which is a 6-inch end of the charge phase they can charge you. So you can't just like sit 5 Witches on the objective unless they're really on the other side. But you use Challengement. You're kind of used to this type of interaction, so don't just get caught out by that strat. And in turn, it's another very slow-paced melee army that don't want to get Challengement at all. Deathwing Knights need to leave their DZ, and if they're getting Challengemented in their own DZ, they're very sad. And they don't have guns too, so they just have to try and punch out of combat. And if it's like 10 Witches, or even like 10 Hellions, or even 6 Reavers, they might unironically struggle to do that. So yeah, Wrath of the Rock, another relatively favored matchup. You're going to see that pretty much every single Marine is mostly favored as much as possible, because that's just, we're professional Marine killers, and we go 1,000,000 miles per hour. It's the same thing with Eldar. Eldar was essentially a green or blue into almost every type Marine that wasn't just Berserker spam, and we're in a lot of ways better than the old Eldar. Obviously, like, not as good as killing like vehicle type skew armies, but a generic Space Marine list, very good into no matter what. Death Guard, Virulent Victorium, it's pretty much the same what I said, Wrath of the Rock, but in a lot of ways they might be even worse than primary, because the only thing, what their primary consists of is, can my OC3 drone hold a primary? If yes, I'm able to do primary. If no, I have physically no way of doing primary. They cannot. They're slow as shit. They have terrible OC. Their Death Guard is not durable. The only things that are pretend durability is the Demon Prince, Mortarion, and Death Shroud, who have the -1 damage active, but that's also not durable to us because Death Shroud is like easier to kill Deathwing Knights in a lot of instances because they don't have AOC too. So it's essentially like Wrath of the Rock, but mostly easier. They have worse primary somehow, and they really do not like Challenge Met, because a lot of times the only way they can try and do primary is setting Deathwing Knight, what are they called, Death Shroud, to try and charge onto an objective, and you can Challenge Met off the objective and charge them, and they're just stuck there, stuck out in the open. You can shoot them with 1,000,000, whatever they call the Venom Cannons. So they're not called Venom Cannons, sorry. I'm Eldar Tyranid player. The poison heavy bolters we have on our Venoms. Or just like Succubus damage, even Hellions, even through the -1 damage, they'll do a good amount of damage. Like, even the shooting, you will kill like a couple Death Shroud with just all your normal bolters. You know, they will fail a couple 2-ups. It takes some free damage in the shooting phase, and the shit's really expensive. So essentially, you know, similar thing to what I just said, but mostly easier. Reaper's Wager. You're playing a mirror match, except they're relying on having a lot of up anti-tank expensive models that want to be fighting things I want to be fighting. You know, they'll probably be taking things like maybe like Ravagers. They'll be taking X amount of Incubi. They will be taking things like Cabalites, Scourges for sure. A lot of these inefficient things into your spam army, spam of dummies. You are omega faster than them, except specifically the Reaver squad that can turn one charge you. Who the fuck cares? Like, whatever. They'll turn one charge. I don't know. Charge some witches or a venom, and then the unit will die because they don't have challenge met to do cheesy interactions with. And you also, you have challenge met. So they also, they'll struggle hard in something like your own Lilith. Your Hellions are way better than their Hellions. Things like that. Essentially, a mirror match where your rules are way better. That's right. I put a teal here because I don't think I'll ever lose a mirror with playing the same list. Kind of a joke, but whatever. It's obviously a purple. Well, it's my matrix. And that's my teal. This is I put it as my list as like a witch spam list. This is a list where the damage list is much worse into the witch spam list, because you have the 10-man Hellions and the Incubi, which they need to do the early game job of what 5 Hellions and 3 Reavers and the 6-man Reavers and the 5 witches do, and you have less of them. So you have less resources. Obviously, we kill each other with impunity, so just having more models logically is better. You do not need 10-man Hellions in this instance. So just everything dies no matter what. So the 10-man Hellion that's deployed on the ground and the 30 Hellion list is doing the job as a 5-man Hellion. So your list is just less efficient. So it's favored in that instance. Biosanctic. I have not played this. No one plays Detachment. I'm not going to tell you it's a favorite matchup. I'm going to say, hypothetically, it is. It's just a bunch of weird pseudo Terminators with terrible saves. You can shoot them to death with Hellions. They're like 5-up saves with a Feel No Pain. They may have a 4-up save. I don't know. It's not a great save. They have like anti-marine melee. They have some funny strats, like they have a better deep strike strat. Like the deep strike charge you with like between +1 and +5 or something. But yeah, I haven't played this. Like, I can't tell you it's great, but I would say, if I would take a guess, this is like a green. Or Bane. This is similar to what I said about all the Marines. It's another Marine army, but more so because it's just a way more elite version of Marines. Like, for instance, a Strike Marine's like 23 points or whatever it is. It's important to like that. There might be 21 points now. I don't know. But things like Inceptors and the things they actually run, Inceptors and Purifiers, are between like 24 and 26, versus like a normal Marine, which is like 18 points. The only thing they get out of it is just a 2-up save. They don't have things like AOC. And their most durable unit is a TA vehicle. These are all things we easily can deal with. The only thing that's slightly scary in each of these instances is like kind of Crow. He can rapid ingress and then try and flame your charge unit. They get 4 strength 6 flamers, and the whole unit reroll 1s to wound at all times, and reroll 1s to hit. Maybe reroll hits depending on where the unit comes, because they're playing Warpbane, and a bunch of other guns. So it's kind of annoying. That's really it. It's like a very expensive unit at like close to 400 points or something, or what it is. So it's like, as scary as any Overwatch unit is. That's the only thing you have to worry about, because this is one army that uses 6-inch Deep Strike, which we counter with Challenge Met, so they can't really even use it very efficiently. Like I said, the most durable unit's T8 vehicle, so they have to worry about getting absolutely slapped to death by Hellions. And then they're just going to lose models to your anti-infantry crap, all your guns and stuff. Like, they're just expensive 2-up save models. Yes, they get a 3-up save against those, but like, you're going to fail some of those. Just lose expensive models to your free guns that you just take for free. It's really good. Knights. This is pretty much the same as Chaos Knights, but easier. They do not have invul saves in melee. Because Chaos Knights, anyone can get an invul save in melee with detachability, so it makes things like the Organis Curse worse. The only thing they have in invul save in melee is they usually run a Lancer and maybe run an Atropos. The Atropos is pretty much mostly fallen out of favor now. So it's usually 4 to 5 bigs with a Lancer, a Castellan probably, and maybe a Defender, and then like whatever your flex 1 or 2 Knights is. And they have some Armigers. This army is pretty much the exact same what I said about Chaos Knights, but worse because they have very low shooting. They have, they're running melee Knights, which are really bad into your army. Because you can do something like you can cuck a Lancer. A lot of times Lancers interact with the game by going really fast, charging, tank shocking for free to try and kill the unit they're tank shocking, and then piling into something else and killing 2 units for free. You can just charge them with the witches, and a lancer would struggle, like unironically would struggle to kill 5 witches in combat, and he cannot kill a little squad in combat. You get a 4-up save, and he has this many attacks, which is 10. 10 attacks at most. Just not a lot when he hits on, I think it's on 2s, but still not great. So this is relatively easy. It's pretty much everything I said with Chaos Knights, just it's an easy army to play against. The spear, I think it's called Spirit at Arms, the armor attachment. This in general, I would say, is the very high end of an orange. You're not favored, but I don't imagine an armor player will ever attack into us. So this is implying that you're probably attacking into them and they have board choice. And they're going to pick an open board. So there's a lot of things you can do to make this a lot easier. So one, like I said, with the OC thing, they now have to stay in 2s. Because a 6 OC armor will never hold a point versus you, because this army is another army that almost cannot overwatch. Its best overwatch is a Hell Run, which is just 6 autocannon shots and like a stubber. It's not great. They might have sustained due to what character they take. I think a wording is sustained. They might have reroll 1s because they have an enhancement that gives reroll 1s to hit to 3 knights. So they have things that make overwatching slightly efficient, like slightly. But Warglaives cannot overwatch at all. It's just 3 melta shots. That's their whole overwatch. That's not scary. So they got us do things like, so what I was saying is they have to stay in 2s to hold primary. As a 6 OC knight cannot hold an objective against you, but 12 OC can. So you have to put multiple knights in every single objective. So that means what you can do is, rapid ingress your 10-man Hellions and kill multiple knights in one phase. Because this is an army, unless they have defenders. Defenders is slightly scary because defenders will hand out 3 -1 damages. So like a Hellion will kill a -1 damage armor, like a 10-man Hellion, won't kill 2. But it will, on the other side, kill 2 not -1 damage armigers. And if you get 10 Hellions fighting two armigers at the same time, it will almost certainly kill 2. So that's what you need. That's what you want to be doing, is using Hellions to upkill. They sadly have no characters except whatever 1 knight they bring, so you don't have succubus value here. So what you need to do is just value your OC and stop their OC, because like I said, this is implying you're on an open board, so you can't really do cheesy hiding things, and you're really just going to be trying to stop their priming. You're going for like a tie here. But if you're on like a heavy board like table 8, somehow they attacked into you, there's not anything they can do. They can't run through walls. They can't charge you. You get to hide behind walls and just send out people to kill them and stop all their primary while doing all actions and secondaries. Like, this is another benefit. Even though they have like between 10 and 12 armigers, they're still not going to be great at doing secondaries, while you will be innately great at doing secondaries. Innately just great at primary in general. You don't have to screen very hard in this army, because at best they might strat reserve a knight or 2, and they have an up and down strat, but they're giant 100 mils. They're quite easy to screen out. So you don't have to worry about that. You can efficiently use your models aggressively early on, which is nice. Index Votann. This is an actual orange. You're unfavored here. Everything with the caveat of if you have board choice, you get a heavy board. It is infinitely easier. But this is due to the prevalence of the land fortress. Because in this attachment you have AOC. So they're T12, 16 wounds, 2-up save, AOC. They're really hard to kill. They have some. Then, like I said, other things, they can overwatch quite decently. They can overwatch quite decently because they have sus 2 heavy bolters and sus 1 strength 7 heavy bolters. Auto cannon, but it's like strength 7 -1 2 damage. So they can overwatch annoyingly well. It's just hard to deal with because they're just going to be overwatching Hellions and killing like 4 to 6 of them every time you try and charge in, which is really bad. This is innately just kind of hard. The rest of the army you can deal with impunity. It's just a bunch of infantry boys and very low toughness, very slow infantry models. They're all everything. The whole army moves 5, and very slow, very low toughness vehicles like T7 Capricus or the 4-up save or wherever they are. So very easy to kill. It's just the land forts are very annoying. They're going to plop the land forts on all 3 midfield objectives. If they have 3, the less land forts they have, the better for you, which is good. And they're going to try and overwatch you death, which is kind of scary. By logic, I would say they're both here equally favored. Like, you do want the Vect in this instance. You want the more Hellions, but you also want the more units. So both these lists have credence, and they're both, like, I would say equally good. You definitely want the more amount of units, because you're gonna have to just suicide witches to just eat Overwatches. It's like a witch squad does steal a whole primary from Land Fortress. You only need 3 witches to steal it, because I think they're OC5. They're OC5 or 6. Either way, 3 witches wins in the leadership, the OC category, so they need to Overwatch them. So you're gonna have to suicide witches out, but that's good for you because they're not Overwatching on things that matter. Delve Shift, another black because I have not played this. Baseline, this will be easier than Index. They don't have AOC, and they're relying on models that are not good into you, because it's just Berserkers. Berserkers are just bad save infantry models. You know, they have a slightly annoying things. They have 4 Funeral Pains, they're T6, and they have a strat for -1 to wound. That's against everything, so you can't be wounding them at 6s, which is kind of annoying. But they're, you know, terrible saves. They're just relying on that Funeral Pain. I think they're 1 wound too. That sounds about right. But then their weapons are just like a very low amount of attacks that hit on 4s that are like anti-vehicle. They're about to be going to charge in to kill vehicles. So it's very inefficient to you. So it's essentially like, you know, less annoying things here they have to deal with. But I haven't played it. It's a black, but I would say it's a purple. This is probably a purple, but you know. Star Shatter. This is a fairly easy matchup because this army is like the least amount of units of like any army, pretty much. It has one big guy who's a character, a low toughness character, who is not. He only has 1 durability increase, which is the choose -1 damage, because they have an enhancement where you pick a character and you pick a vehicle near that character and you hand out -1 damage. It's the only thing that makes him slightly durable. If he doesn't have it, he gets punked by things like Hellions and Morgana's Curse and such. You know, they can go wee. Why this is really easy is 1 DDAs are very inefficient to you because they're big anti-tank vehicles. You don't have a lot of tanks that matter that are being shot, or you have tiny tanks that won't be shot at. They're very expensive. They're very large, so easy to screen out. So they have to either deploy them, and they're very slow. They move 10, and I think they're 8 inches long, so they're really hard to maneuver. So you either shot reserves 1, or you get screened out quite easily, especially if you're on like a small deployment, something like Search and Destroy, and then they can be screened out quite easily. They have Race, which is like the whole army is like Star Shatter is my DDAs, my king are gonna hang out in the middle on the back and shoot you to death, and my Race squad is gonna hold a primary. But the issue with Race, and this especially in this matchup, is they have a character that gives them pretty much everything. That guy has to stay alive. So against you, Precision Army, they have to string all the way back. So they're only going to be able to put like 2 to 3 Race on any objective, which is 4 to 6 OC, which you can take, and there's nothing they can do about it. They just get really sad. So they're really bad at primary. This army is awful at primary. It's just like 1 Race squad trying to hold an objective, trying to do it very well, and they cannot do it against you. So you do that. DDAs are only T8, for instance. So Hellions are, no matter what, wound them on 4s at the minimum. It's very good for you. So yeah, you have a lot of benefits to them. And a Race, another benefit is when they're led, they're infantry. So your witches and your Lilith and such get very happy. So you can kill Race that way. And Hellions will beat up Wraiths too in melee. Just go chop up. The other jobs to deal with. This is an attachment where both the reasonings have credence. The more witches is important here because Silent King has a very annoying anti-loss attack. It's like 10 to 12 attacks at 6-1-1 with reroll 1 to hit and wound. So he will just like kill 5 witches every turn with that attack. Annoying as shit. But by that logic, you need more witches so you can keep sending them out to do that. So if you have less witches, they're gonna die easier, and you're gonna have less ability to do that. But at the same time, you know, the more Hellions you have, the better. Malice can be decently helpful here. Just, you know, having a dev wound attack into these slightly annoying durability things can help, especially if you have like lethal or just, you know, stuff like that. Wraiths are, you know, are infantry, so the Incubi can punch up into them decently hard. So there's benefits to both here. I would not say either is innately better. But the Reavers are also quite good here. They don't have the benefit of Melta's cheesing no invul save models like they do in a lot of armies. A lot of armies just have 3-up save tanks, so Melta's can just pop off and kill some tanks for free. It's really good. Like Reavers love killing Melta Rhinos in turn 1. But they move block this army incredibly well. Like everything flies, but everything is ginormous. So you can move block them like so well. You steal primary so well. And then their melee is actually quite good here. Especially like a +1 strength Reaver. Wounds, DDAs on 5s, or 4s I mean, which is very funny for a bike model. Alright. And that was a lot on Star Shatter. Dynasty, the index type detachment. This one's very easy. This whole the whole detachment is buffing warriors to the 9s and having warriors do everything. But you can one-shot a warrior brick. Like Lilith will one-shot a warrior brick. Especially like she'll like almost one-shot the invul save warrior brick depending on what drug you have. But if they have 2 squads, only one gets an invul save, which is from a character, it's from Orc and the Diviner. It's really bad for them. You do insane damage to the warriors with just shooting, like Hellions and stuff. So they have to like be super careful. And then like that army just tries to bully primary, but you can stop their primary quite easily by just like throwing witches on the objectives and like surrounding the witches. They can't even arrest onto the primary, which is kind of fun. But you're one of the best armies in the game at just killing 20 warriors. And just like you're also the fastest army in the game, so get them the quickest if you need to. So yeah, quite easy. You should stomp this with like very little effort because it's just like Star Shatter without the things that are annoyingly kind of annoying to deal with, like a lot of Doomsday Arcs and the Silent King, and just has a shit ton of support for warriors. So like when they don't have the things that might be slightly annoying, it gets way easier. Orks. Orks is one of the most cucked armies by Challenge Met. They like cannot deal with that strat because the army relies. The only thing that makes the army even remotely somewhat viable is the Gazkul block, and Lilith can one-shot that block. She can one-shot 20 Berserkers with you know, the lethal strat plus a good detachment ability up. But Berserkers have double the amount of wounds as Orc boys. She just kills them. I overkilled 20 Orc boys this last weekend and then put a bunch of damage on the Gazkul too and killed his character when I was +2 movement. Because I went first. So I was like, I want to go kill the boys, and they just annihilated them. When you have actual buffs up, you know, I did not have, I did have the lethal strat up, but you know, when you don't have like, you know, if I had like +1 strength or +1 attack, +1 weapon skill, it would have done even way more damage too. I didn't even have those. But so you have one of the things that can easily kill them. The only thing they can do against you is fight on death, but also at the same time, even if they do fight on death, want to cost them 2 or 3 CP depending on malice. And 2, it's Lilith costs like 175 points, and that squad is 500. It's a very bad trade. You have really good things that the army doesn't want to be mortal wounded by Reavers, because Reavers can just kill like a whole 5-man Orc squad with mortal wounds, really bad for them. The army hates Hellions in both phases. Like they hate the reactive move, they hate the challenge met, they hate the shooting. Like Hellions can come down and shoot Gazkul's brick and kill like half the boys in the shooting phase. That's really bad. And like I said, this army gets susceptible to challenge met because it's like Gazkul needs to get in there and do stuff, and if he's getting charged by 5 witches, he's a sad boy. He's really sad because a lot of times then they have to like charge more things in, and a lot more of those things are dying on your own turn, so you're just trading them to hell. This army has above average primary due to having a lot of boys. Like they take beast boys and boys, so they have decent primary, so it's not like completely easy to just stand witches on objectives and steal primary. But taking the primary is not hard due to them being able to kill them with very little effort. The whole army just has a 5-up save. You just stab them to death. Even like unbuff witches will kill like 5 commandos usually, or like most of a commando squad, and like the 1 or 2 commandos living won't kill them. Because it's just like 3 attacks that hit on 3s and wound on 3s. It's not going to kill much of any witches. So Orks, it's very easy. They also don't have any shooting to get out. Like you can expect 5 witches to not die to like the 16 boys in combat with their pistols, which is kind of sad. Like 5 witches can't necessarily challenge met 20 berserkers very well, because they can shoot you with you know their 20 bolt pistols that hit better than the Orc ones. But Orcs, they're better. And if they advance anyways, they can't shoot you anyways. So like, you know, get screwed. Raven Guard, this army kind of got deleted. Doesn't exist much anymore. But this is relatively easy. Especially now, because the only kind of threatening thing they had before was the turn 1 rapid ingress. That doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. Now it's just killing a bunch of very extensive marine bodies and screening out some Centurions, and Centurions only strat reserve, and they can't come in turn 1 no matter what anyways. You can screen that out. Don't get long range charge shot by them. Vetrix. this is the most important army, and the only reason I'm playing Malice in singles is because of Vetrix. This one, Malice is better. The Incubi are also very good here, because they actually do very good damage in the Vetrix, even in this detachment. If you're playing someone like Cartel, they kill the shit out of Vetrix, it's really cool. But you need the Vetch in this matchup. This is a purple due to the fact you will just, I would recommend if you're playing this detachment, you're playing into Vetrix, is you send Lilith to assassinate their non-Calgar squad. Just go kill it, because she will kill that squad. Calgar is more annoying because of he can cheese damage with his 4-up invul save. Kill that squad, and then for the rest of the game, hide and slowly just steal all their primaries. Just kill their primaries, like kill a couple Vetrix guard, steal their primary, kill a couple Vetrix guards, steal their primary. If you're playing it's a Redeemer version, do not pair in this army, you will lose. Do not. This army's cringe and overpowered. This is not me not talking about Redeemers. There's nothing you can do about Redeemers. The only thing that can deal with Redeemers is if you bring Haywire Scourges. I would say in general, Scourges can make this list, can make it easier depending on their list. Because a lot of people are now bringing like Redemptors and stuff, and Scourges will make, Haywire Scourges will make Redemptors a lot easier to deal with, because Redemptors are so fucking annoying for this army to deal with. So like, keep that in mind. If you're trying to hunt a Vetrix guard, maybe put in some Scourges. Maybe. But, you know, things like Malice, Incubi, very good. Hellions are amazing if you can bait out the AOC somewhere else, or they don't have the CP to deal with it anymore. The Morgana's Curse is amazing. Lilith is amazing. All these things help around to assassinate the Vetrix when you can, and then stopping their primary and secondary otherwise. Because luckily, like you're not going to table this army within reason, depending on their list, but you can stop most of their points quite easily. It's very hard for this army to like 20-0 you, because it's slow and it's not flexible. It's just like, I'm the T-pose army. I'm gonna sit in the midfield and beat up people, and you can just run around it. But do not pair into Redeemers though. Redeemers suck. Stormlance. Stormlance is weird. You have a lot of pros and cons in this army. Pros is a lot of their data sheets are very inefficient to you. Wolfen, Omega, inefficient. They're just low armor save, so they die to Hellion shooting. They have a 4-up save, so you can just shoot them to death with Hellions. And they have 2 attacks of melee at strength 5. Like, that's an awful profile. They can't even kill like much witches in the combat. Like, I wouldn't even say with like probably it would, but I wouldn't even say 10 Wolfen would kill 5 witches in combat. It's just hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. Here you go. Here's like 5 saves. Yeah, 5 Wolfen though, that's not gonna kill 5 witches at all. But like Thunderwolves they're on the surface kind of annoying to deal with because they're T6 mounted, but they have low saves of being only a 3-up, so they're very successful at being Hellioned. Especially if you get Hellions to strength 6. If you get the strength, if you get like two damage drugs up, the Hellions will just go Blender like a 6-man wolf, Thunderwolf. Most people aren't running that anymore. They're usually just running a couple 3-mans nowadays. They have those head takers, which are very easy to deal with. So just don't get caught out by a lot of Terminator squads. They're not too hard to deal with. Like Lilith will kill most of a Terminator squad, and then they're just kind of stuck in combat fighting her, which is not great. Hellions, you know, Hellions are great in Terminator because they have AOC, and they can be -1 to wound if you're strength 6. So you gotta watch out for that. So just like kill the things around the big 10-man, and then just grind the 10-man down with things like Morgana's Curse. Morgana's Curse is great to them. That lady will kill like 3 to 5 Terminators by herself. It's really good. All right, T-Sun's Index. I gotta hurry up. Oh God, I'm going too long. T-Sun's Index is the same as any of the Marine armies, except they just Overwatch slightly better. So something to think about, but they are way more expensive. They have a lot less bodies, so it's just like they rely on their little bow goats. Maybe the people don't really play Mutalists anymore, but they might bring 1 or 2. So it's just like the bow goats and the normal Zangors to hold primaries. So just kill those guys out while not letting Magnus like murder you, but he's very screenable. He just, you know, is a dude that needs to hide because a lot of times he can't be -1 damage because he needs to be moving stuff around. If he's not -1 damage, you're going to go assassinate him with Hellions, for instance, or like the Morgana's Curse, while killing everything as support. You know, the way to beat T-Suns is don't kill Magnus within reason, is to kill the support around the army. And they're quite awful at primary. It's always in T-Sun's biggest issue, except for this one detachment right here, is they're not great at primary. There you go. Rubricate Phalanx is the worst detachment to play against. This detachment is hardest, except for this one, kind of. This detachment does everything you don't want to see. They have permanent AOC against damage 1. They have permanent -1 to wound at all times on all the Terminators, not even just higher strength. They have a strat. They have Terminators that go really fast. They have like it takes all the Terminator abilities and takes away all downside. They shoot really hard. They move very fast by having assault and shoot and double move, so they can go 16 inches in one turn. They have fallback, shoot, and charge. A lot of a lot of Terminators can't do that. They have okay melee, especially into you. It's like not even, it'll kill some guys. And then they have a really good strat of if you kill a Psyker model, you pick someone within 6 and they get to shoot you, so you can't even like blink off damage. So this one's just bad. Do not pair into this army unless you're just trying to just block it and you just hide behind a wall all game and do nothing. And then they have other things like they can do both in combat to get out of combat. There's a lot of things that are very annoying. So fear the Rubricate Phalanx. Vanguard Nids. This is a jail army, and you're an army that can't be jailed very hard. Oh, I didn't express the difference here. Why Witches is better because you just want more units. This is another army you might have to be sacrificing Witches. Another army you're gonna be having to suicide. And the extra Hellions are like amazing here. The Vect is not very useful at all here. The Incubi are not useful here because they're Overwatch food. So a lot of those extra damage units are not great. And also the Reavers are really good here. Here's and go, mortal wound people to death. That's really good. So this dash is the generic ones later. Vanguard, it's a jail-based list. It usually runs 15 to 30 Reavers and 15 to 30 Gene Stealers and a smattering of other things. That you're an army that is very unjailable due to being army-wide fly, and even Witches can be fly. There are a bunch of awful safe infantry models, so like Reavers and Witches mow them down, especially like on Hellions. I mean, especially Hellion guns. Very funny. They have not great primary. They can be good primary into like gunline armies. That's what they're good into. But their primary just consists of throwing lictors on objectives and hoping that works. Doesn't really work into you very well. So you can steal the primary with impunity. This is an army where you don't need the damage. They don't have a lot of shots you care about, so Malice isn't too important. You don't really need the 25th Hellion, because you're really going to be sending those 5 Hellions out early anyways. Now, you don't want to send out 10 if you can help it. Sometimes Vanguard runs guns and they might just get shot to death. And you want those extra units. Coach Stampede, this is the other doomed matchup. Shit sucks. It has everything you don't want to see. Mass T10, T11, Mass 2 up, plus a 4 save at the same time. You can't rely on Reavers to kill it. Really high OC monsters. This is the highest OC monsters in the game. They run 3 of them. Maybe sometimes we might even run 4. OC, you can't steal the primary from a Norn unless you put 15, 8 Witches on objective, which is not that realistic because they can still overwatch this stuff. And one of the worst parts are they have an auto explode strat. D6 mortals to everyone within 6 for 1 CP. It's really bad. So you're going to struggle to kill them. You can't steal the primary very well, and they can kill you very easily. It's really bad. This one is slightly better because you want the Hellions in this matchup. You need the Hellions in this matchup. And the Malice, the Vector can come in handy to stop. Really, the only shot they really care about is potentially using, they have a grenade shot when they charge, using that and using the auto explode, but it's really, it's there for the extra damage because the Reavers aren't great here. The extra Witches are nice, but you need the Hellions. Subterranean Assault. This is incredibly easy on a baseline for Witches due to the ability this army hates being screened out. What you can do is on turn 1 and 2 is just run up the board. Just run up the board and you can screen out the whole board. And then they cannot come anywhere. Most Subterranean Assault lists run very little shooting too. They might run a Zone Storm squad or they might not. And it's just a bunch of monsters. And the monsters, they still have to come down with their giant bases too. These monsters are usually not like the super durable ones. Like they're running things like Horospexes, maybe some Norns, but not a lot. But something like Tyrannofexes, Zoanthropes. Zoanthropes are also very bad into you. Like they have okay shooting, but they're the infantry keyword. So they get mauled by a lot of things in your army, especially like Hellion guns, because they just have 4 Bimbal states. So they don't even get cover. They just take those 4s and they get shot to death. So you have a lot of answers in this army. This army is another one that doesn't do primary very well, but just relies on deep striking monsters onto objectives, and you can completely stop that. This is another 6-inch deep strike army that does not like being challenge meted because you have another counter to them. So you essentially stop all the tricks, and almost none of the strats in this attachment are very efficient into you. They don't do a lot. They don't have very good strats in general, but it's like they don't have any they want to use. So like they're kind of just stuck just using their day sheets to win. which is not great. All right, Tau. I put 2 grays. This is, if you have table choice, it's a green. If you don't have a table choice, it's a red. You can, if it's like, if a Moncog gets table choice and they go first, they can table you on like turn 1 unless you're hiding in that part of this corner, and they still might be able to get you. So this is, it depends on that. If you are attacking, do not attack into Tau. Unless it is literally like later in the team of thingy and only heavy boards are still left for some reason, then you're fine. But if they have like something like table 2, GW4, even GW6, you're so susceptible to just being shot to death and there's nothing you can do about it. So these are great. This is, if you are defending and you have table choice, you're good. If you do not, I would steer clear of these, especially Monka. World leaders. I put this as a teal, like 20-0ing any army is hard, but this is pretty much one of our best matchups. It's the generic MSU world leaders list, because they have essentially no answers to what you can do. You are way faster than them. You hit points per model way harder than them. They do not like being challenged. Another army hates being challenge meted. And you get to kill them so easily. Usually like, because this army relies on having a lot of, berserkers. This one more so, it's the berserker list, but this one usually sometimes brings a 20-man. And it relies on, a big 20-man 3-up save squad, and then Lilith goes AP4 and stabs them to almost full death, if not full death. You have Fight on Death, which is really bad for them. You have Fight First, which is really bad for them. You have Hellions, which are really bad for them, because Hellions kill everything in their army quite fast, because they're like, their most durable unit that's not a Demon Prince is a T6 infantry model with a 3-up save. So those are even successful to Hellion guns. So this is like, you get to do everything, they get to do nothing. This army is very successful to being jailed by Reavers. So you have every answer to this army, and they have very little answers in return. They also have the worst advance charge in the game, because their advance charge requires them to use it before they even roll the advance, and it only works on one day sheet, which is the Zerker day sheet. So they're very like pre-measurable, and a lot of their buffs aren't very useful. Obviously, they have army-wide Fight on Death of 3+. That's pretty good. Oh, it's 4+, but that's pretty good. But the like getting sustain, getting lethals, these don't matter. +1 AP in melee doesn't matter. The 8-inch blood surge strat doesn't matter, because you just won't shoot them, and the only time you will shoot them is if Lilith is the closest target to them, and that only works in Berserkers. You can shoot the other things. As if Lilith is the closest target to that unit, so they have to blood surge in Lilith anyways, and you're just like, wee! If I first anyways, stab. So you just have all the answers. They don't have much answers, and they're very easy to kill. Berserker spam is slightly harder due to just having a shit ton more wounds. But it is just, here's 4 units of 20, 30 to 4 units of 20 models, and this is my whole army. And then they bring like a couple cultists, a couple spawn to be able to do secondaries. But you focus on killing those early game, having Lilith and Hellions assassinate important 20-mans, and just leaving the army with very little to nothing. Like, even if Lilith doesn't one-shot a 20-man, she will kill 15+ models, and then that unit is so anemic, it's not going to do anything for the rest of the game. It's going to try and sit on objective, maybe charge a Venom, and then die the next turn. And a Berserker squad with a character is almost 500 points, or might be 500 points. I think it's more than 500 points now. It's 380 plus like 120 point character, maybe with enhancement. Yeah, they're about 500 points. Really expensive. Your most expensive unit is like 180, 85 maybe 185 for Hellions or something like that. This is an army where Vect is not useful. They don't have any strats. Like, I guess if you have a lot of Hellions, Vect is slightly useful because they only have one strat that matters, which is -1 damage. Obviously, Interrupt matters against any melee army baseline, so it's kind of helpful there, but it's kind of like, if you're trying to charge into multiple units, Interrupt, Vect isn't useful on the Interrupt too much because, you know, they have multiple units anyway, so they can just interrupt on the one that's not as expensive. It's like always like helpful, but it's hard to get the Vect into good spots. But all right, there is, you know, I put slightly more time into specific armies than others. I'm not trying to talk about every specific matchup. I just want to show you the colors and what I value, what I think every matchup is. And this is a generic meta matrix sense. Obviously, everything is different depending on a team's, depending on a specific list, and depending on what terrain. Because if this is like a WTC matrix, that might be slightly different. Not really. I try to keep it as generic as possible. versus like a GW matrix where it's their terrain formats. Yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any question about a specific army, I can answer that too. Yeah. Please ask them the questions. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and share this with everyone. I'll make some more teams lists, videos, like more specific ones. It isn't just like this overarching thing I did about like the idea of Spectral Spite teams and a generic matrix for them. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And you all have a great night once again.